Diary, my dear, after 12 years of silence, I am finally ready to share with you the story of our diagnosis and the medical era that took me to the point of death. This is the beginning of my diabetic life. He was 10 years old when we first showed the symptoms of diabetes, and we went to camp with the school. I did not pay much attention to it at that time. But I was very thirsty. I had to urinate every 5 minutes, I was lethargic and tired, and I lost a lot of weight. All of these symptoms were signs of type 1 diabetes, and if left untreated can lead to coma or even death. When I returned home, my parents saw that I was not feeling well and took me directly to the doctor. But unfortunately I got a medical error and my symptoms were confused with the virus, and I was told to go home and rest. I tried but could not sleep for a moment because every part of my body was shaking. During the night, my condition deteriorated rapidly. At first I felt scared, but over time, I could not think of anything other than the fact that I was dying, because I really was. Within a few hours, I felt worse, very dehydrated and weak. No matter how much water I drank, none of it remained in my body. Even now I can see a little girl lying in pain on the toilet seat crying to get rid of the pain. But it did not disappear, and it will never disappear. My mother was still in a panic. Her motherly instinct had told her that the problem was more than a virus and that her little girl was very ill. She thought it must be type 1 diabetes. But family and friends assured her that she was wrong. My brave mother was battling cancer at the time. She was trying to save me while she was fighting for her life. My mother asked our neighbor to come to our house and test my blood sugar, because her daughter also had type 1 diabetes. I still remember the fear on my mother's face when she read the results. My blood sugar was so high that the device could not even detect it. My mother ran to the phone and called the hospital and asked for help. The nurse behind the line told him that we no longer had time to wait for the ambulance and that we had to go to the hospital immediately, and I had to stay awake. At that time I was fainting and losing consciousness, and my poor memory only allowed me to remember certain moments of that fast and scary ride. When we got to the emergency room, my mother immediately jumped out of the car. Mono hugged her and ran to the door. I remember her cries for help, as a sea of people rushed to me. A man with broken legs was sitting in his wheelchair. He immediately pulled himself out of the chair so that my mother could lower me. I was rushed to the emergency room and put to bed. I remember trying to find the strength to cry or ask what was happening to me. Am I dying? But I could not even do that. Within minutes, the doctors began inserting tubes, wires, needles, and connecting me to devices. Dozens of doctors, counselors, and nurses sat by my bedside, with devices ringing in my ear. I was really scared then. According to doctors, my blood sugar and ketones were so high that I could not read. I was in the last stage of diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA for short, a dangerous complication of type 1 diabetes. DKA occurs when there is not enough insulin in the body, causing your blood to become acidic and therefore toxic. When this happens, you put a lot of pressure on your limbs. My heart, lungs, and kidneys may fail, which is what happened to me. It can even cause the patient to go into a coma or die. Emergency physicians were able to stabilize the menu and move the menu to the pediatric intensive care unit. My father asked the doctor, "Will my daughter be well?" And his response was, "Your daughter is in critical condition, and the next 24 hours will be very important." When I think of that day, I really grieve for my parents. I cannot imagine how they felt when I told them that their daughter might be alive until morning. This is a bitter experience for every parent. Seeing sadness in my mother's face is something I will never forget and will carry with me forever. The rest of that night was dark and painful. When I woke up, I felt like I was having a terrible nightmare. Something you could not escape or cross. I was in the middle of this nightmare. It was very real and intense. But as the days passed, I regained my strength. Before being released from the hospital, the nurse had told my mother that I needed an injection for the rest of my life. This is the burden that every type 1 diabetic has. We live our lives with regular insulin injections, strict diets, and constant monitoring of daily blood sugar tests. No matter how healthy our lifestyle or exercise is, it will never go away. I remember this almost 10 times a day, when I look at my aching finger and stare at a device to tell me if I need an injection. I spent my whole life trying to accept this situation. I carried a burden the size of the whole world. But now, after years of anger, hurt, and shame, I have learned to be proud of who I am. I am a fighter, and after almost 12 years, I feel stronger than ever. I'm here, I'm alive. And although I have a condition that never goes away, no problem, I'm fine. I am not ashamed or embarrassed about my situation, because I will not let him stop me. I am brave, resilient, and unstoppable. And if you think that type 1 diabetes or any other disease is crippling you, believe me, you are wrong.